Welcome back to the Life and Mission Podcast. I'm Kay Helm, and we're starting a series on the 6 basic building blocks of storytelling. Who, what, where, why, when, and how. On the surface, these seem like basic questions, but in the world of mission work, they are the bridge between the donor's heart and the transformation that we want to see in the world. When one of these blocks is missing or foggy, the connection breaks, but when we get them right, we move from just reporting dry facts to sharing a world that our donors can step into with us. Today we're looking at the relational side of things. When I say who, I'm talking about 3 main characters. The first who is you. Who are you? The donor needs to know who you are, and not just who you are, but also who do you serve, and that's the second. We need to talk about the people you're serving, the people on the other side of the donations. And then, of course, the third who is your donor? Who are they really? By the end of this year, we're going to go into all kinds of detail on that specific question. But for now, we're simply asking, who are you talking to? So let's start with you. Potential supporters need to know who you are. The donor's journey is where they get to know you, like you, and trust you. And so you have to be able to talk about who you are, what brought you here, and why you do what you do. This could be the part that most of us feel least comfortable talking about when we need to share who we are, especially in terms of our qualifications to do this work. We could feel prideful. We could feel like we're bragging about ourselves. Like, well, I do this because this. Or the opposite. We might feel like, well, why me? Why am I doing this? Essentially, you are interviewing for the job of delivering this transformation that your donor wants to see in the world. This is serious business. Part of raising support for your cause is building relationships, letting people get to know you, and also you getting to know your donors. But even the people who know you won't give if they're not sure they can trust you to steward their gifts well, to take what they invest in your cause and turn that investment into something positive. So to build the trust, you have to talk about your qualifications, your systems. We're going to get to the how part a little later. But when you talk about the ways that you're working to get the knowledge or expertise that you need, that can help you if you don't already have it. And that can include things like we hire local experts, okay? So you don't have to put the whole burden on your own shoulders, but you do need to think about, how am I answering this question of, do we have qualified people? Do we know what we're doing, basically, is what you need to answer here. So you're not bragging, you're demonstrating that you have serious regard for the work and for the donor's intent. You're not the hero, but you are the steward. You're bringing people together. You're the connection with the desire to see something happen, and maybe you're on the other side of the world, and then you're the connector with that work. And so whatever role you play, you need to show, hey, this is serious. I've done the work to do it well, and you can trust me to do it. Think about it like this. If a donor gives toward a clean water project, their intent is that children stop getting sick. They don't have to walk 15 kilometers to get something out of a muddy hole somewhere that the animals have been in. So when you share that you have 10 years of engineering experience, or that you have deep relationships with local tribal leaders and you've built a network of the expertise that's needed, you're not saying, look how great I am. You're saying, look how safe your investment is. And that's something donors are looking for, especially major donors. So sharing your credentials, your experience, or your connections and the ways that you have built in that expertise to your work, then these are all ways of honoring that donor's sacrifice. You're proving that you're a reliable partner and you won't waste the gifts that they provide. You're making sure that their values are accurately translated into action, where you are doing the work or looking over the work, or where you're organizing. Just be clear about, this is my role and this is how we're going to make sure things get done. When we're talking about you as the who, we're not talking about a resume or CV, but we are talking about letting people know that you're trustworthy and reliable to say what you say you're going to do. Next, we need to know who you serve. These are the people who benefit from your work and from the donor's generosity. Something in their world changes because of what you're doing. And you always hear me and others talk about how important it is to share stories from the people whose lives are touched through your work. And one of the challenges in nonprofit storytelling is the constant temptation to make ourselves and the donor the hero, and the people we serve become props. So as nonprofit leaders, we really have to combat this effect of this, really the world, the media world that we live in. There's this never-ending stream of news cycles, social media algorithms, and even propaganda that depend on outrage and excess, monetizing suffering. We don't want to be a part of that system, do we? We really don't need to be a part of that. We need to take care. We need to portray people in our stories as more than passive recipients of aid. They need to be more than one-dimensional characters, or like I said, props in our story. Now, it's common to hear people described by their situations, like the poor, the hungry, the homeless. But it's not who they are. It's the situation they're in. It's their current circumstance. When we describe someone only by their lack, we build a wall of separation, and the donor can eventually think, why can't they get their act together? The donor gets tired of supporting something they don't see as changeable. If those people are always in that situation, then what's wrong with them? That's where our brains go sometimes. And so we've got to guard against that. Part of our work as nonprofit storytellers is to show people as more than passive recipients. Often in our stories, the people we serve, they're almost like interchangeable in the story, right? It's just, we do this thing, we helped this person, we provided this, and this time it's Mary, last time it was Joe, and it's the same story. Be careful if all your stories begin to feel or sound the same. Look at, how am I really portraying these as three-dimensional human beings with lives outside of this little sliver that we're able to see. Sometimes the type of work you do, you don't see much of a person's life. You don't get a lot of time to spend with them. And so everything I'm saying here needs to adapt to your situation. But ideally, we really need to give more well-rounded portraits of people, always keeping that dignity intact. The people you serve are more than just a name in a story where somebody else is the hero. They need to be the primary actors currently facing an obstacle. In storytelling, that's the protagonist. They're doing the work. We're joining them at a certain point in their story where something needs to happen for them to take that new path forward, to get to that next step. We're just a part of their story, and we're really happy to be a part of that story. Whatever the case, your stories do have the power to change hearts and minds, to crush stereotypes, to open our eyes to neighbors, brothers, sisters, people who are made in the image of God. Every person is more than the problem that they're currently facing. There are people with talents, with hopes and dreams, and they often share values with the donors who fund your mission. The question is, will you help us see it? So here are some things to consider as you shape your stories. First of all, describe the person in a way that would make them feel honored if they read it themselves. If the situation and the roles are reversed, how would you feel about the story? In fact, it's a really good idea to let the person read what you wrote and let them correct you if you're wrong and let them offer suggestions. You'll need to do your homework. You need to take a little time as you collect material for your stories. Always stick to the facts, keep the story accurate, keep it genuine, and honor the people in our stories also by using asset-based storytelling. What is that? It means that we lead with the person's strength rather than what they lack. Examples of this would be, you mentioned the parents, the family that you're helping, have advanced degrees, even though they haven't been allowed to work because of their immigration status. Now that can help change some stereotypes, perhaps. It's an accurate description of the situation, the challenges, the strengths the parents are bringing into that situation. It just gives us a way to see them as more three-dimensional people. We also need to take care with our descriptions and our images. Soiled dress, bare feet, dirty face, flies in the eyes, right? We've all seen those types of images. Those types of images, whether they're created through words or a photograph or video, they're used to elicit pity, which is not what we want to do. We want empathy, but not pity. We want compassion, but we don't want poverty porn. Okay? That's where we make the person who sees the image feel some emotion, so they get something out of that, but it steals dignity from the person whose image is being used. It's stealing from them in order for us to get something, whether that's the thrill of emotion or manipulating someone into giving, and neither of those is good. So beware of that. And I will say that there are times when we need to be shocked into action. But I wouldn't use those types of images or descriptions for fundraising. Think of those more as evidence. And those need to be handled prayerfully and carefully and through different channels than what we're talking about here. Always be aware that certain images can reinforce stereotypes, even if they aren't poverty porn or whatever, if they're not those kind of extreme images. But they can, in subtle ways, reinforce stereotypes, prejudices. So our descriptions, our photos, our videos, they're all either building connection or separation. And what we're trying to do is to not other people, but to instead focus on things that we all share. So with asset-based storytelling, we're not only sharing strengths, but we're also going to share values. For instance, you're telling a story about a resourceful father who's navigated impossible systems to keep his family together. That's a shared value of I want to keep a family together. So when we show people in this way, it helps us to see that we're giving to a partnership, that these are not just people that are passively waiting for help. They're actively working for change themselves. They're doing what they can do. We're going to come alongside, maybe with some assistance, some access, some training, whatever it is. And then that means you and me, the donor, the resourceful father, we're all working together, right? We're all doing this together. And that's really kind of a best case scenario for our storytelling. Part of showing people as more three-dimensional is to bring them into the story with physical descriptions. And again, we're trying to stay away from stereotypical types of things, but give us their words, show us their actions and mannerisms. So you're going to have to be very observant when you're working with people. This is easier when you're working more long-term with people and when you actually have a relationship with them. And so if you can try to build in more of that into your time on the field or working with people, and again, what you're doing will affect kind of how much of this time that you have. But if you think this way, you'll begin to notice more things. So in your storytelling, then, you can capture a moment to help show somebody as more three-dimensional, real human being with personality, okay? So here's one. Zita speaks 4 languages fluently, but none are the language that employers want. That's why she's in our class. She's going to make it, I know. You should hear how she says perfect, still rolling her R's, but winking while she says it. She knows not to roll the R, but she's encouraging the others. I mean, come on. Wouldn't you want to love to sit down and have tea and conversation with Zita? I mean, she sounds like a really cool person. I love that type of storytelling. You can help us get to know the people you serve by describing them in those types of ways, and also by describing the conditions that they're in. So are jobs available? Is healthcare available? What's broken around them? What's working in the system that they deal with each day? Is it a temporary problem or ongoing with no end in sight, right? So there's a little bit of your where is going to coming in kind of helping us in our description of the who and the how. See how they're all kind of work together, right? Depending on the nature of your work, you may need to talk more about systems, less. We'll get more into all of that when we talk about the how and the why building blocks, but I want you to see that there are many, many ways of showing people as more than just one-dimensional passive recipients of aid. You can give us a taste of their world in just one sentence. You can say the bank requires the equivalent of a year's salary to open an account, or the nearest hospital is 150 miles away. Descriptions like that help donors grasp the real challenges faced by the people that you serve. Let us feel the pressure. Let us join you in that with prayer, with finances, with other kinds of support. If you don't share those things, then we just give for the sake of charity and wonder, why can't those people get their act together? We don't want to do that. That brings us to donors. Who is your donor? Who are you talking to? By the end of this year, we're going to go into lots of detail on this question. But today, I'll focus on the main things, which is that fundraising is about relationships, and we need to connect the donor with the work. Just as we need to remove the us and them separation from our stories from the field, we need to invite donors in without making them the funders for our thing. That's a form of us and them that keeps donors at arm's distance and tells them, hey, I just want your money. So we don't want to do that, especially in ministry and for missionaries raising support. Relationship is everything. It is not just about the money. It's about prayer. It's about eating together, sharing hopes and dreams, sharing concerns. It's family. It's relationships that really have to steward well. There are things in this ministry that God called you to do that cannot be solved with money. So make sure that you have a really close circle of support that can provide that deeper level of life together. Not everybody's going to be that kind of support, but they will give, or they'll open doors for you, or they'll help you make connections. So when we talk about who is your donor, I want you to think of those types of things. And sometimes people will surprise you, okay? But think about, what kind of relationship is it? Is it like really close? Do you have a history together? Is that relationship centered around solving the problem together? Or do you have more connecting points? Did you go to church together? Did you grow up together? Your family? You share a hobby that you like together, and we have a life outside of your donor relationship with them. Part of building these relationships is listening to people and understanding where they're coming from, what they care about, what they're going through, so you can see that support runs both ways. Now, you're not going to have that kind of relationship with everybody. In your communications, you can think in terms of concentric circles, where some people get super personal updates, and I'm especially talking to you who are missionaries. Others just want to focus on the work being accomplished, and that's okay. But you just need to know who's who. As time passes and you nurture relationships, and as people move into new seasons, they're going to move in and out of those different circles, getting closer, getting further. Life happens, right? So yeah, there's work to this, but it's the good work of nurturing healthy relationships. In our storytelling, we always want to consider, who am I talking to? We always want to understand what they already know about the problem that we're working to solve. Sometimes we want to tell people what we do, but we don't understand that awareness side of it. What do they know or not know about this problem, okay? So when that happens, we miss the mark. We miss the opportunity because we haven't given them what they need. So what do I mean by giving them what they need? It's like the who, what, where, why, when, like giving them all the pieces to understand, but also it's meeting them where they are. You may have heard of the elevator pitch, where you can explain what you do in 90 seconds or less, okay? And you're stuck in an elevator, and in that 90-second ride, you can explain what you do, okay? That's a great start, but it is about you. And it is a great answer. You should have one. It is a great answer when someone asks what you do. Another option is to have a super short story ready to go that demonstrates what you do. We ran a training program where we taught a 40-hour seminar on mental health in nations where mental health care was really hard to find. So that's kind of the elevator speech, but it's really hard for people to connect with that. But people really got it when I began to share this really short story about a church leader who learned about Alzheimer's and recognized that might be what was happening with his mom. Prior to our training, the only explanation his whole community had when these old women, old men would kind of begin this strange behavior was that witchcraft was involved somehow. And so he learned about Alzheimer's and taught his family, he taught his church, and then he taught his community. And when we went back for a follow-up, he told us, now they call me the defender of old women. I love that. People got that story right away. Almost everybody knows somebody with Alzheimer's, or they know somebody who's caring for somebody with it. They cannot imagine their loved ones being seen as cursed or demonized. Just that somebody got an explanation for what was happening made them get really excited about what we did. And that story became a handle that people could grab hold of quickly, and they could understand how important this training was and the impact it was having. And the story would bring us together too. Me, the pastor in Africa, and a potential donor, all connected because we care about our loved ones. We feel compassion for families who are experiencing something so disorienting and painful. So people I had just met, I would tell them that story, and they would start sharing family experiences with Alzheimer's or with mental health issues. Sometimes it led to a follow-up meeting. Sometimes it led to a new donor. You're not out there trying to manipulate people, but you do want to give them something that can really make them go, aha, hey, I might want to be involved in that. That's what you're trying to, you're just getting them to the next step. So when you think about who you're talking to, can I give somebody who's never heard of this, who's never met me, can I give them a handle to hold on to where we might have a second conversation? That's what I mean when I talk about giving them what they need to understand your mission. The other thing they need is trust. Trust or lack of trust can be a big barrier, but knowing that you're trustworthy really helps people to connect and to be able to give. The other thing that they need in order to give is they need to trust you. If they don't already know, like, and trust you, let's say it's somebody that just saw you give a presentation. They may already be passionate about the cause, education, Bible translation, church planting, clean water, whatever your cause is. Some folks are going to connect there at the cause first. They care about what you do and might be ready to give if they know that you can be trusted. So you'll want to have things at your presentation that say who you are, how they can learn more about you, maybe some endorsements, credentials, things that show they can trust you to do what you say, and your stories can help with this, or something that shows financial accountability. But you don't want to hit people with all of that up front, but you do want to have it available if they ask for it. Just know that new people are always looking for clues about your trustworthiness. You can be prepared for these conversations ahead of time and have simple, clear stories that introduce yourself, your work, your organization to people with different levels of awareness about the problems you solve. And getting to know your donors or potential donors means not only finding out about what their gifts and talents are, but also their motivations, their hopes, their dreams. Really, who are they? The answers to all these questions will help determine how we speak to people about supporting our work. We'll get into more about your donors specifically and that whole levels of awareness. There's a whole thing on it that we're going to do later this year. But for now, just take care of those two things, relationship and trust. So that's it. The first of our 6 building blocks: who, what, where, why, when, and how. We just covered the who. And when you get that who part right, your writing is going to stop feeling like a sales pitch, and it's going to start feeling like an invitation. And that makes a difference. Here's your mission for this week. I want you to take a look at your most recent newsletter, social media post, whatever you've got, whether it's an appeal or email, and ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, did I share something that demonstrates my stewardship, my expertise, or our trustworthiness? Did I describe the people I serve with dignity? Am I focusing on strengths and not just their needs? Yes, they have needs, but they also have more than that. Did I give donors a handle, a shared value, a simple story, something that can help them quickly grab hold of why this matters to them? If you find a spot where it's a little foggy, try focusing on strengths, try sharing a little more detail, and really think about values. Values are a great connector, and a lot of our values are universal values. And we're going to talk about them more in an upcoming episode, so don't worry. Next time we are moving on to the second building block, and that is the one where we talk about values. We'll talk about how to define the problem and the solution in a way that makes sense to somebody who isn't on the ground with you every day. Until then, find your voice, tell your story, change the world. I'm Kay Helm, and this is the Life and Mission Podcast.